Now, our first question: how do I know who I am? How do I even think about it? How do we learn? How do we acquire certain self-understanding? How do we embrace certain identity? As you know, today we are bombarded with popular slogans that we can be whoever we want, that we can literally become our own creators. Whatever attractive on surface that may sound, that is evidently false. The truth is that such ideas put unbearable burdens on those who embrace those slogans. For you see, we are not self-creating creatures. We do not have resources in us to come up with a vision of who we want to be. Instead, we receive those ideas of who we are from outside. We always derive our identity from something existing outside of us and independently of us, often from something larger. Even if we may think that we came up with something unique, it was based on something we already have been exposed to before. When someone suggests that you don't need to listen to others and choose your own identity, it is quite likely that they are saying, you should listen to me and choose what I promote. So when it happens, be careful. Be careful. Mostly our self-understanding, our identity is formed unconsciously, as we are shaped by one of these three. Our lived experience, for example, being shaped by your family, or as we observe the world, in which we live, when we observe how others live and interact, or as we hear and embrace different stories that tell us who we are. For example, when we consciously embrace one or another cultural story, religion, philosophy, which tells us who we are. And we will unpack these ideas as we go deeper. For now, here is one biblical example, and we can read from Deuteronomy 4 how God Yahweh wanted Israel to embrace a certain story of their very special role and their very special relationships with God, and to hand it over to next generations. Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children, how on the day that you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, the Lord said to me, gather the people to me, that I may let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children so. This is the word of the Lord. And everyone says, thanks be to God. Remember this defining event. Teach it diligently. Tell this story again and again. And the chosen people did it. And we know that they succeeded. In the book of Acts we read how Stephen retells the same story 15 centuries later, Acts 7. As Jewish people do it even today, 3.5 millennia later. That magnificent event at Mount Sinai, that story continues to shape their identity even today. Who are you? We are those people. Talking about our environment, cultural anthropologists, those researchers who study culture and people in them, they distinguish between traditional and modern cultures. And this distinction can be quite helpful as we reflect on our own lives. I will give you a brief summary on how different cultures go about defining their identities, or our identities I should say. In so-called traditional cultures, you are taught that your identity is defined by your context, by the environment where you are born in. Traditional cultures usually emphasize marriage and family and religion as sources of your identity. Your identity can also be derived from your nation, from your tribe, or maybe from caste, as in Hinduism. And there are of course pros and cons to traditional approach. Sure, pros, there is obviously stability, there is order, traditions, belonging, having place in community, connections. You don't need to invent yourself, just to embrace who you are in your community. And of course there are also cons, but there is also rigidity, stagnation, limited options, lack of freedom for self-expression and flourishing as individuals. You are in a way bound by your context. In so-called modern cultures, on the other hand, you are taught that you create your own identity, that you are a self-made person. Modern cultures tend to emphasize those aspects where we can make difference, like education, career, business, our achievements, various ways of self-expression, political affiliation, and so on. And again, there are pros and there are cons to modern approach as well. So pros, there is lots of freedom to develop your talents, to explore different pathways, freedom to serve in different capacities. It's all good. Cons, all the pressure is on you. Yes, on you. The problem of too many options. And that may be paralyzing. And this modern approach is also not good for relationships, as in this way of thinking we kind of need to prioritize ourselves above others, and in reality, complete self-creation is impossible, as we are always, remember, defined by the culture. We can only choose from those options that we have before us. As you can see, traditional and modern are two opposite ways of thinking, and they may be helpful as we reflect on who we are. But the truth is that our self-understanding, our identity, it will be a unique mix for each one of us, for each one of you. And to say it once again, we always derive our identity from outside. And we do it the way our culture teaches us. So this is how we acquire our identity, our self-understanding. If you wish, pause for a moment, reflect on how you understand who you are. What experiences, what stories have shaped you? Which are more important and central? Which ones steer your life and have impact on your decisions more than others? And yes, sure, we will delve much deeper in the topic of stories that shape us to be who we are in our next session.